I designed this training room to break warriors and expose panic responses. Humans used it to stretch, eat snacks, and take a nap. Vex Talvora had been an instructor at the Galactic Defense Academy for 17 cycles, and in that time, he had trained over 2,000 cadets from 43 different species. He considered himself, without a shred of modesty, an expert in xenobiology, combat readiness, and the precise threshold at which panic overtakes rational thought in various life forms. So naturally, he thought, the humans would be easy. Standing at the front of Training Bay 7, Vex Music, Talvora adjusted his ceremonial teaching sash, which hung across his chitinous thorax in what he believed was an intimidating fashion. Before him stood 12 humans fresh from their transport ship, still wearing those ridiculous cloth coverings they insisted were necessary. Despite music, the climate-controlled facility, they looked disappointingly normal. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. Honestly, the bipedal design was getting old. Welcome, Vex, Talvora announced, music, his vocal synthesizer, adding what he hoped was an ominous echo to phase. Music 3 combat assessment. I am lead instructor Vex Talvora, and I will be evaluating your reflexive response capabilities under live fire conditions. Music. One of the humans, a female with dark skin and her head fur tied back, raised her appendage. And GT. Music. And GT. Hand, they called it whatever. Yes. Cadet Tours. Did you say live fire? Sir. Vex Talvora's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Good. The fear response was beginning. Indeed, Cadet. Live ammunition, pulse rounds traveling at 3,000 ms. We have found this to be the most accurate assessment of a species' true combat viability. Music. The weapons are locked to stun capacity naturally, but I assure you the pain receptors in your nervous system will register each impact as quite real. He paused, music for effect, waiting for the usual progression. Widened eyes, elevated heart rates, perhaps a few requests to use the waste facilities. Instead, music. Cadet Tours nodded slowly and said, cool. Cool. Another human, this one male, with pale skin and bright orange head fur, leaned toward his companion and whispered, though Vex Talvora's music auditory sensors easily picked it up. Dude, it's like laser tag. Laser. What? Vex Talvora's translator music struggled with the term. Nothing, sir. The orange-furred one, Cadet Kowalski. Music said quickly, too quickly. Vex Talvora felt the first stirring of something he had not experienced. Music. In many cycles, uncertainty, the combat simulation room was, in Vex Talvora's professional opinion, terrifying. He had designed it himself after studying the fear responses of 60 different species. The walls were dark, almost black, with random panels that could slide open without warning. The floor was uneven, forcing cadets to maintain music constant spatial awareness, and the automated turrets, oh, those beautiful turrets, could track movement with 0.2 second accuracy and fire from any angle. Most music species requested sedatives before entering. The Corellians had a 23% pass rate. The Sildorians, who prided themselves on their warrior culture, barely hit 31%. Even the notoriously stubborn Krell music usually had at least one cadet refuse to enter entirely. The humans walked in like they were touring a recreational facility. Huh, said Cadet Jack Reeves. A male with dark hair and an impressive amount of facial scars that suggested either combat experience or terrible life choices. Reminds me of that paintball place in Jersey. Music. Which one? Asked Cadet Lisa Chen, barely glancing at the turret array above her head. The indoor one. Music. Or the woods course, the warehouse one. You know, with the two-story setup. Vex Talvara's secondary brain hurt. His primary brain was not far behind. From the observation deck, his assistant. Music, a six-limbed phylaxian named Rick Nash, activated the communication panel. Sir, should we perhaps? This is Music. Me overstepping, but should we begin with the preliminary safety demonstration? These are trained military personnel. And GT, Music. And GT, Rick Nash. Vex Talvara said, though his certainty was wavering. They have reviewed Music. The materials. Begin. The first sequence, level 2. Difficulty, level Music 2 was usually reserved for the final exam. He wanted to see them sweat. The lights. Music dimmed, a klaxon sounded. First turret opened fire. Cadet Tours moved, not in the jerky Music panic scramble Vex Talvara expected, but in a smooth roll that brought her behind a barrier just as 3 pulse rounds scorched the air where she had been standing. She popped up, assessed the turret positions, and called out, 2 on the left, and GT, Music, and GT, 1 high right, 3 on approach. Humans moved like a single organism. Music. Cadet Ben Kowalski dove forward, somehow predicting where the next volley would fire before the turrets had even locked on. Cadet Tyler Brooks, Music, who had seemed half asleep during the briefing, suddenly became a blur of motion, weaving between pulse. Music streamed with his hands casually in his pockets. His hands are still in his pockets. Rick Nash's voice cracked through the communicator. I can see that, Rick Nash. The scenario was designed to last 4 minutes. That was how long it took for the average cadet's adrenaline response to peak and their decision-making to deteriorate into survival instinct. The humans cleared it. Music in 90 seconds, and not one of them had been hit. Vex Talvara stood very still, his 3 eyes blinking in an uncoordinated pattern that signaled deep confusion to anyone familiar with his species. Run it again. Level Music 5, sir. Level 5 is beyond Academy standards. It is classified as potentially lethal. Even Music, with stun rounds due to the rate of fire in Level 5. The room reset. The humans waited, and here was the thing that truly unsettled Vex Talvara. One of them yawned. Cadet Reeves actually covered his mouth with his hand and yawned like he was waiting for public transportation. The turrets unleashed Music chaos. 72 rounds per second filled the combat room with enough firepower to discourage Music. A small invasion force. The humans looked, and there was no other word for it, bored. By level 8, Vex Talvara had abandoned all pretense. Music of following Academy protocols. The observation deck had filled with faculty members, all pressed against the viewing glass like hatchlings. Music at a feeding display. Dean Salafone, a distinguished Morthesian whose species had conquered 4 star systems through sheer tactical brilliance. Music had personally left a budget meeting to witness what his assistant had breathlessly described as an anomaly of potentially paradigm-shifting proportions in the combat room below. Cadet Music, Sophia Torres, was doing a Handstand, why? Dean Salaphone asked. Music in a very quiet voice that suggested his calm was purely theoretical. Is that human inverted? I believe, Dean, she is stretching, Vex. Talvora said, watching his entire career dissolve in real time while under fire. Yes, Dean, 3 turrets were currently tracking towards firing. Music in a pattern that should have been mathematically impossible to evade. She pushed off her hands, flipped upright, and twisted her body in a corkscrew motion that defied several laws of physics that Vex Talvora had. Music thought were universal. All 3 pulse rounds missed. She landed, rolled her shoulders, and said to Cadet Chen, way better than yoga, right? Chen was balanced on one leg atop a barrier, the other leg extended. Music behind her in a pose that looked ceremonial. A pulse round passed so close to her head that it should have singed her hair. She did not flinch. I can actually feel music, the stretch in my hamstrings now. Cadet Tyler Brooks had found a corner where 2 barriers met and had wedged himself into a sitting position, arms crossed, eyes half closed. He was in less Vex Talvora's sensors were malfunctioning. Taking a nap, music pulse rounds hammered the barriers around him in a continuous stream, and the human looked like he was waiting for a delayed shuttle. Is he sleeping, Professor Quindar, who taught advanced threat assessment, sounded like his reality was cracking? I think he might be, Vex Talvora admitted. Cadet Music Jack Reeves had adopted a different strategy entirely. He was walking, not running, not diving, just walking in a straight line across the room. Music, while pulse rounds created a light show around him. He moved his head slightly left, slightly right, ducked when necessary, but never broke stride. He was also eating something from a small packet. What music is in his mouth, Dean Salaphone asked. Vex Talvora consulted his data pad. According to the translator, it is called, and I am reading this correctly, a granola bar. He is consuming music, nutrition during a lethal combat assessment, apparently. Dean, yes, Cadet Ben Kowalski had taken it upon himself to narrate his own actions as he moved through the scenario, his voice carrying easily over the sound of weapons fire. Okay, so we have got 4 turrets on overlapping music fields. Classic crossfire setup. Decent use of elevation, but the timing is off. Music by maybe half a second. You can tell because, yep, there it is. See that gap? Music amateur hour. Honestly, he slid under a pulse stream while pointing upward. Music, and that turret, that one right there, has been firing in bursts of 5 for the last 30 seconds, so you just count the rhythm. Music, and boom, free passage. Rick Nash had stopped taking notes. He was just staring, all 6 of his appendages hanging limply at his sides. Vex Talvora made a decision that would either validate his methods or end his teaching career. Music. He activated the master control and disabled every safety protocol in the facility. The combat room's difficulty music ceiling had just been removed entirely. Sir, what are you doing? Professor Quindar's voice climbed several octaves, testing a hypothesis. The turrets tripled their rate of fire. Music, environmental hazards activated. Sections of floor became electrified. Wall panels began music firing. Concussive blasts, gravity fluctuators created random fields. Music of increased weight, and the room filled with enough smoke and strobe lighting to disorient a warform Hectaria. Humans adapted in 4 seconds. Cadet. Lisa Music Chen called out, floor. Grid is a 3 by 3 pattern. Alternate squares hot, gravity wells at 7 and 11 o'clock, they are rotating. Clockwise, that was Tours. Cadet. Reeves finished his granola bar, crumpled the wrapper, and somehow threw it directly into a waste receptacle on the observation deck through a gap in the shielding that was 2 cm wide. He gave a thumbs-up gesture that vexed. Haver's cultural database informed him. Meant approval or success. Tyler Brooks woke up, assessed the chaos, and his first words were, "Oh good, this is more interesting." Dean Zalpon turned to vexed Haver with all 4 of his eyes wide. "What are they, according to their files?" Dean, music there. Considered average human military personnel. Average. Dean. In the observation deck, someone fainted. It was Professor Tilmoth, who taught survival dynamics and had once survived a 40-day siege on Kronos. Music 9. She hit the floor with a gentle thump that nobody acknowledged, because they were all too busy watching the humans treat a lethal combat scenario like a mildly engaging recreational activity. Vexed Haver slammed his primary appendage on the emergency music, shut down, and every turret in the facility powered down simultaneously. The sudden silence was somehow more disturbing than the weapon's fire had been. He activated the communication system with more force than necessary, which did music nothing because it was a touch interface, but it made him feel slightly better. All human cadets remain in position. Music. I am entering the combat room. Rick Nash grabbed his arm with 2 of his appendages. Music. Sir, that is highly irregular. Protocol states that. Protocol. Vexed Haver inside with a calmness that belied the complete music mental breakdown he was experiencing internally. Has clearly failed to account for whatever these creatures are. He descended the stairs, passed through music 3 security checkpoints, and entered the combat room. The humans had gathered in a loose cluster, looking confused by the sudden halt. Cadet Reeves was stretching his arms above his head. Cadet Brooks had sat back down and appeared to be meditating. Explain, vexed Haver said, without preamble. And GT, music. And GT, explain to me why none of you are injured, distressed, or showing any signs of elevated fear response. This was a level 10 combat scenario. 3 species have it a violation of sentient music rights conventions. The Corellian Empire refuses to even attempt it. You music people look like I interrupted your rest cycle. The humans exchanged glances. It was Cadet Tours who spoke first, her music tone cautious, like she was explaining something to a youngling. Sir, with respect, this was not that different from our standard quals back home. Standard qualifications, vexed Haver repeated slowly. Yes, sir, though honestly, we usually do live fire exercises with actual projectiles, not stun rounds. These pulse weapons have a visible beam so you can track them easier. Bullets are faster music, and you cannot see them coming. Vexed Haver's translator had to reprocess that sentence twice. You train with invisible projectiles. Music moving faster than sound. Well, yeah, Cadet Jack Reeves said, as if this was the most obvious thing in the galaxy. How else would you train for combat? Oh wait, you probably want context. So, music back on Earth, most of us grew of playing dodgeball. Dodgeball, it is a game where children throw rubber balls at each other as hard as possible. And GT, music. And GT, trying to hit opponents while avoiding being hit themselves, Cadet Lisa Chen explained helpfully. Usually played in school gymnasiums ages 5 and up, vexed. Havers music mandibles locked, you train your offspring in combat at age 5. No, that is just a game, Chen said. Actual combat music training does not usually start until teenage years, and even then it is optional. And GT, music. And GT, unless you count Little League. Little League, Cadet Ben Kowalski jumped in, his enthusiasm genuine and deeply horrifying. Oh man, Little League is great music. So you have kids like 7 or 8 years old and they throw small, hard spheres at each music other at speeds around 70 to 80 mph. Sorry, that is about 120 km/h, music. And another kid has to hit it with a wooden stick while it is moving, miss the ball, and it can break bones. Music. My cousin Tommy lost 3 teeth in a championship game, and this is recreation. Dean Zalpon's music. Voice crackled through the communication system from the observation deck. Super popular, sir, Kowalski confirmed. Music. My mom still has the trophy from when our team won regionals. Cadet Tyler Brooks finally opened his eyes fully. If you think that is music bad, you should hear about hockey. We strap blades to our feet, carry sticks, and chase a frozen music rubber disc across ice while actively encouraging physical combat between players. Music. I broke my collarbone twice before I turned 12. Twice, vexed Haver said numbly. Music. And that was a light injury year. Cadet Torres raised her hand slightly. Should we mention the extreme music sports? Please do not, vexed Haver said. She continued. Anyway, so some humans for fun jump out of aircraft at high altitude with music only, a fabric parachute, or throw themselves off bridges attached to elastic cords, or climb vertical rock faces without safety equipment, or surf waves that are 10 m tall, or dive into water with predatory fauna known to attack humans, or stop talking. There is also racing. And GT, music. And GT, Cadet Reeves added. We get in vehicles and drive them at each other at 300 km/h. Sometimes in circles for hours. Sometimes music through deserts where the temperature can kill you. Sometimes on motorcycles where a single mistake means you are sliding across pavement at terminal velocity with only thin fabric protecting you. We call it road rash. Brooks said conversationally. The fabric does not protect you, by the way. That is marketing. Vexed Haver sat down on the floor of the combat room, his legs simply giving up on the concept of standing. From the observation deck he could hear Professor Quindar being escorted out by medical staff. Something about hyperventilation. Let me understand music. This, he said quietly. Your species evolved on a planet so naturally hostile that you developed these reflexes as children. And GT, music. And GT, through recreational activities, and consider our most advanced combat scenarios to be, what was your word? Boring. Well, Torres said diplomatically, maybe not boring, just, familiar. Music. The turrets have predictable patterns. Real combat is way more chaotic. Plus, Nobody music is actually trying to kill us here. You can tell by the spacing of the shots. It is like design music to be passable if you are paying attention. Paying attention, Vexed Haver whispered to himself. Cadet Chen crouched music down to his eye level, her expression. Kind sir, are you okay? You look distressed. Do you need us to get medical personnel? A human was offering him medical assistance for emotion distress caused by watching them not music die. The galaxy Vexed Haver realized made no sense anymore. Dean Zalpan had called an emergency music faculty meeting. Every instructor, professor and combat specialist currently stationed at the Galactic Defense Academy sat in the main conference music hall, which was designed to hold 300 individuals comfortably. Right now it felt cramped. Music word had spread, and even off-duty personnel had shown up. The 12 humans stood at the front of the room, looking increasingly uncomfortable with the attention. Vexed Haver stood beside them holding a data pad music that he consulted with the grim determination of someone documenting a disaster. Let us begin music with the basics, Dean Zalpan said, his forearms folded in what his species considered a neutral music diplomatic posture. Cadet Tours, you mentioned something called hockey. Please elaborate. Tours cleared her throat. Right, so hockey is played on ice, which is frozen water. Players wear sharp metal blades attached to boots and skate at speeds up to 40 km/h. The objective is to hit a hard rubber disc called a puck into the music opposing team's goal using long sticks. Physical contact is not just allowed but encouraged. Players regularly collide with each other, the walls and the ice. Injuries include concussions, broken bones, music lost teeth and lacerations. Professor Tilmoth, who had recovered from her earlier fainting spell, raised a tentacle. And this is professional sport music, yes, performed by trained adults. Oh no, kids play it too. Tours said, I started when I was 6. There are leagues music for all ages. The room erupted in clicking, whistling, and various forms of agitated communication across 24 languages. Dean music, Zalpan raised one arm for silence. 6 years old on ice, with blades hitting each other, he said, each phrase separately as if trying to process them individually. Cadet Reeves, you mentioned something called motocross. Please music explain, and I want you to know I am already regretting asking. Reeves actually music smiled, which made it worse. Motocross is awesome. You ride a motorcycle, which is a two-wheeled vehicle. Music with an engine across rough terrain filled with jumps, turns, and obstacles. Riders go airborne regularly. Music sometimes launching 6 or 7 m into the air and land on uneven ground at music high speed. Crashes are common. My brother broke his femur in 3 places during a competition. He was back racing 2 months later. 2 months. And GT music. And GT. Rick Nash sounded faint. The femur takes most species a minimum of 8 months to heal sufficiently for normal music locomotion. Humans heal pretty fast, Reeves said with a shrug. Plus we have got good pain management. Music, you just take some medication and push through. Vexed Haver consulted his data pad. I have been researching human recreational activities for music the past 2 hours. I need to share what I have learned, because if I have to carry This knowledge alone, I will request a transfer to a different galaxy. He tapped the screen. There is an activity called music, free solo climbing where humans scale vertical rock surfaces, sometimes over 900 m high, without any safety equipment whatsoever. A single mistake means music death. Humans do this voluntarily for enjoyment. Room went very quiet. There is also cave diving. Vexed Haver continued, his voice taking music on a detached quality that suggested psychological disconnect. Humans swim deep underground into water-filled caves with limited oxygen supplies, in complete darkness through passages so narrow they must remove their air tanks to squeeze through. They can become trapped, disoriented, or run out of oxygen. They do this for fun. Cadet Tyler Brooks nodded. Cave diving is intense. You have got to stay calm or you will panic and die. Lost a training instructor that way in Belize. Good guy. Miscalculated his air supply. He died. And you describe him as a good guy in past tense as if discussing weather patterns. And GT, music. And GT. Professor Quindar stood up, his scales flushing purple with distress. How are your species not extinct? We are pretty good music and not dying, Brooks said. Mostly. Cadet Lisa Chang raised her hand. Should we talk about Australia? No, Vexter said immediately. What is Australia? And GT, music. And GT, Dean Xylophone asked, and Vexter made a sound that his translator refused to process. Music. Chang ignored them. Both. Australia is a continent on Earth where a significant portion of the music wildlife has evolved to be lethally venomous or otherwise dangerous. To humans, there are music spiders whose bites cause necrosis, snakes that can kill in minutes, jellyfish with toxins, music that cause cardiac arrest, octopi with venom that induces paralysis, crocodiles that can grow over 6 m long, and sharks, lots of sharks. And GT, music. And GT, humans live there, millions of them, on purpose. Some of the most beautiful beaches in the world are in Australia. Cadet Ben Kowalski, music, added. Great. Surfing, Vexter said, which is standing on a board in the ocean riding waves, often in the same waters as the predatory sharks you just mentioned. Music. Well, yeah, but shark attacks are pretty rare. Statistically pretty rare is not the same as non-existent. Kowalski, music, looked confused by Vexter's tone. I mean, you cannot let fear control your life, right? That would be boring. Music. Professor Tilmoth had her head in her appendages. They consider safety boring. We are sharing the galaxy with a species that finds survival music boring. Dean Xylophone stood and walked to the display screen at the front of the room. He, music, pulled up a holographic image of Earth rotating slowly. This planet, this blue and music green sphere, is classified as a garden world, class 7. Habitability. It looks peaceful. It is a death world, Vexter said flatly. I have been doing research. Earth has extreme temperature variations from degrees to plus 50 degrees. See in different regions. Music. It has violent atmospheric phenomena called hurricanes, tornadoes, and typhoons that can destroy entire settlements. It has tectonic activity that causes earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. It has predatory megafauna, venomous insects, toxic plants, and microbial pathogens that have killed millions throughout human history. Humans evolved not just to survive there but to thrive there. Cadet Sophia. Tours looked almost apologetic. It is really not that bad once you get used to it. You just have to pay attention. Clears throat to your surroundings and not do anything too stupid. Define too stupid, Professor Quindar said weakly. Like don't pet the wild bears, don't swim in water with crocodiles unless you know what you are doing. Check your shoes for spiders in the morning. If music, you live in certain regions. Basic stuff, Vexter repeated, checking your footwear for venomous arachnids is basic morning routine. I mean, only in some places. Dean Xylophone turned off music. The hologram. He looked at his faculty, then at the humans, then back at his faculty. I believe, he said slowly, we may need to music reconsider our entire approach to human integration into galactic defense forces. You think? Vexter's sarcasm was palpable even through the translator. 3 days later, Vexter Music found himself sitting in Dean Xylophone's office, reviewing a document that had taken the combined effort of the entire Academy administration to produce. Music. It was titled, and he had to read this part twice to believe it, Revised Safety Protocols for Human Personnel Music and Other Species of Comparable Durability. Other species of comparable durability, Vexter said aloud. We cannot find any. I checked the entire music galactic database. Humans are statistically alone in their tolerance for catastrophic environmental conditions and their bizarre psychological relationship with danger. Dean Xylophone poured music himself a glass of Morphesian calming fluid, drank it, then poured another. The Council wants us to create separate training facilities, music, separate difficulty tiers. They are concerned that having humans in standard courses music will create psychological damage in other cadets who witness their casual disregard music for mortality. That seems wise, however. The dean continued, holding up one finger. They also want us to study human training music methodologies to see if other species can be gradually adapted to higher stress thresholds. Music. The military applications are apparently too significant to ignore, Vexter thought. About 12 humans treating a lethal combat scenario. Music, like a mild cardio workout. He thought about children playing with projectiles on ice while wearing knives on their feet. He thought about millions of humans living on a continent where the wildlife actively tried to kill them and calling it home. We are going to get someone killed, he said simply. Probably music. The dean agreed, but the humans have offered to help design the new curriculum. And GT, music. And GT. Cadet Tor submitted a proposal. The morning, would you like to see it? Against his better judgment, Vexter nodded. And GT, music. And GT. The dean transferred the file to his data pad. Vexter read the first line and closed his eye. She wants to start with dodgeball music. She says it builds fundamental reflexes and spatial awareness in a fun, low-stakes environment. Low music. Stakes, projectiles thrown at children. Low stakes. Vexter set down the data pad. Music. I am going to retire. I am going to request a transfer to a monitoring station in an empty sector of space where nothing happens and no humans can find me. There was a knock on the office door. Dean Xylophone called music for entry and Cadet Jack Reeves stepped inside looking apologetic, sorry to interrupt, sirs, music I just wanted to drop off the after-action report from today's training session. He placed a data music chip on the desk. Also, I wanted to ask if we could maybe get some different food in the commissary, not complaining the nutrition paste is fine music, but a couple of the cadets are getting homesick and we were wondering if we could get ingredients to cook actual meals. Cook, Vexter asked. Music you prepare your own food with heat and sharp implements. I mean, yeah. Most humans cook. It is pretty normal. Music. Reeves paused. Is that weird here? Most species gave up direct food preparation 3,000 years ago due to the danger of contamination. And GT, music. And GT, burns and lacerations. Dean Xylophone explained. Reeves blinked. Huh, okay. Well, never mind then. Oh, one more thing. A few of us were talking and we wanted to know if there was like a nature preserve music or park area on the station. We are used to being outside and the recycled air is getting to some music people outside. Vexter felt something in his brain give up entirely. You want to be exposed to the vacuum of space. No, like a garden area, trees, grass, open air. Doesn't have to be big. Music. Reeves looked between them. We just miss Earth, you know. The way the sun feels, the sound of wind, the smell of rain, that kind of thing. And there it was, the thing that finally made sense to Vexter. Music. These creatures, these absurdly durable apex predators who treated mortal music danger as entertainment, were homesick. They missed their death world. They missed the planet that had forged them into the most inadvertently terrifying species the galaxy had ever encountered. We will see what we can do, Cadet Dean Xylophone said gently. After Reeves left, Vexter and the Dean sat in silence for a long moment. You know what the truly frightening part is, Vexter said finally. Tell me. I looked up what actually scares humans, what they consider genuine threats. Do you know what I found? I am almost afraid to ask. Public speaking. Music, Vexter said. Social rejection, disappointing their families, making music, phone calls to schedule appointments. These are the things that cause them anxiety. Species that jumps out of aircraft for recreation. Music is afraid of talking to strangers. Dean Xylophone stared at him, then he started laughing, a sound like grinding metal. Music that indicated his species had reached the limits of rational comprehension. Vexter joined him in music for a full minute. The two most respected members of the Galactic Defense Academy faculty sat in an office and laughed at the beautiful, terrible absurdity of humanity. Somewhere in the training facility, 12 humans were probably doing something music that would give the medical staff heart palpitations. And tomorrow, Vexter would have to teach music them advanced tactics. He poured himself a glass of calming fluid. He was going to need it.